Parshas Tazria. This week's Parsha speaks about a few things, but it predominantly speaks about the condition of tzara'as. Tzara'as, which is commonly but probably mistakenly translated as leprosy. It's a skin condition, but it's a skin condition that Chazal teach us comes about as a result of some kind of spiritual failure. So it's a physical condition that results from a spiritual failure. The Gemara in Arachin cites 7 possible spiritual failures that give rise to the condition of tzara'as. Perhaps most prominently among them is the violation of the prohibition against negative speech, about lashon hara. There are several allusions to this. The korban that's brought, the offering that's brought, is of birds that Rashi, quoting Chazal, say are mefatbetin. They chirp like a speaker of lashon hara. One of the restrictions for somebody who has tzara'as, once he's declared by the Kohen to have tzara'as, to be tameh, to be defiled by this condition, is that he sits outside, badad yeshev, michutz lamachane. He has to sit alone outside of the camp. And the Meforshim explain, Rashi, quoting the Gemara, says that as a result of his negative speech, he separated people who previously had relationships between man and wife, between friends, etc. So he too must sit alone. And there are other Meforshim who say simply that he sits alone because if he's a mesaper lashon hara, if he speaks lashon hara, negative speech, we'll talk about what that is precisely in a minute, that he's like a contaminant, and we don't want others to be exposed to him. He's got to sit alone. Lashon hara, according to the Balei Halacha, is mesaper b'gnus chavero afilu hi emes. Person speaks negatively about someone else, even if what he's saying is true. Now, how many times have we heard when somebody objects and says, I think this is lashon hara, and the response is, but it's true. That's an absolutely irrelevant response, because negative speech is not the category of false speech. There is a category of false negative speech, and that's called motzi shemra, somebody who brings out who slanders, brings out a false name, negative name. That is, that he slanders another, and that's saying something that's not true. But we have a prohibition, which unfortunately is not widely observed within civil society at large, and sometimes not even within the observant community, which is not to speak negatively about other people unless there is a halachically permissible condition for that negative speech. And there are. It's not the topic of this discussion, and it is worthy of study. So the Gemara says that the Yetzer Hara is dome lizvuv, is like a fly. And the Vilna Gaon says that it is most appropriately applicable, this observation that the Yetzer Hara is like a fly, is to a mesaper lashon hara, to somebody who speaks lashon hara. And one of them is about, and there are 2 reasons for this. One of them is that somebody who speaks lashon hara is goes straight for the wound, like a fly will be attracted to the wound on a person or on an animal, on a carcass. And the other is quoting a verse that somebody who speaks lashon hara is like a fly. If it gets stuck in oil and stays there, it will contaminate the entire batch. And so lashon hara has a fly-like element. Now we know the Gemara in Arachin says that the me'il of the Kohen Gadol, the vestment that was worn, that was made kulo Techeiles, was mechaper on the avon of lashon hara. Well, it was facilitated atonement for Klal Yisrael for the sin of lashon hara. And the question is, how does that happen? So the Gemara refers to the bottom of the me'il had pamon v'rimon. It had knitted pomegranates, and it had bells that sounded. So just like the speaker of lashon hara involves sound, so the me'il involves sound. Okay, that's an allusion, but I heard from Rabbi Reuven Gross in the name of Rav Shneur Kotler the following: the me'il is made of Techeiles, which is a blue dyed wool, and Techeiles, according to the Gemara Menachos, has an associative value. Techeiles dome yam, yam dome rakia dome kisei hakavod. The Techeiles, its color, it's kind of a bluish color. It's It's like the sea. The sea is like the heavens, and the heavens is like the Kisei HaKavod, is like the throne, the holy throne, the throne of the Almighty. And in contrast, we said earlier that a Mesaper Lashon Hara, that someone who speaks Lashon Hara, is, according to the Vilna Gaon, is Dome Lezvuv, is like a fly. How is he like a fly? We'll get into it in a little bit more detail, which is, for example, a person has a beautiful home, a lovely appointed home with very tastefully done, very beautiful. Just about everything about it is absolutely gorgeous. And in flies a fly. Where does he go? Directly to the garbage. The fly is not attracted to beauty. The fly is not attracted to that which inspires and ennobles. The fly is attracted to garbage. The fly is attracted to the bathroom. And someone who speaks Lashon Hara is Dome Lezvuv, that he's attracted to garbage. How does the Me'il, which is made of Techeiles, how does that offer kapara for atonement, for the prohibition, for violating the prohibition of Lashon Hara, of speaking negatively about someone, even if it's true? Well, let's think about the associative value of Techeiles. Techeiles starts out with a thread of blue, but the association is to the sea, the vast sea, and then to the sky, which is even greater, and then to the Kisei HaKavod. The Kisei HaKavod is the grandest of all perspectives, the heavenly throne, which is all-seeing. Does it dwell on the garbage? Absolutely not. The Kisei HaKavod has the perspective of the entirety of the world and the entirety of the person. And the entirety of the person is not garbage. Every human being has some element of defect. Every human being has some element of that which ought to be rejected. But that is not what we are urged, exhorted to focus on. We are urged to focus on the totality and not to focus on the specific flaws, and to look at the big picture. Amech kulam tzadikim. We are to look at the righteousness of everyone. And what an uplifting message this could be for the entire people if we were all careful to look at the totality of an individual instead of being fly-like and focusing only on the garbage. Let's look at the beauty of everyone and everything that we see. Not to be critical, but to take in the entire picture and look at everything in context, and specifically to create a culture of positivity and uplifting inspiration, and take lessons of dedication and commitment from all who we see around us, in our shul, in our homes, in our schools, wherever we are. Have a good Shabbos.